Hey guys, Mathel here once again, and it appears that I've discovered the combination between chaos damage, poison, chaos scaling, poison scaling, and Wither Totem. It's pretty fucking good. I'll give you guys a second to let that sink in just for a while we watch this beautiful wonder in action. Just kidding. Anyway, so this is a Barrage, and as we all know, there is quite a lot of damage behind Barrage at the moment, and apparently even on Wanders. With the right stuff, Wanders can definitely do a lot of insane damage, and this character has officially cleared everything in the game extremely easily. Now, I feel like I have to say this again for the haters out there that seem to want to hate last time. No, this is not cheap. No, this is not a terribly realistic build for most people, and certainly not a starter build. It's one of those that you're going to chuck in near the middle of the league, like it is right now for me, and hence I made it with several exalts worth of stuff. In total, the character probably costs about 20 exalts, a lot of it coming from the 2 flasks, Dying Sun and Sin's Rebirth, and the 2 Barrage Helm Enchant. So this certainly won't be achievable for a lot of people, maybe even most, but the goal here was to see how good a Wander could be these days with, relatively decent gear, nothing incredible on the mirrored gear spectrum. My wand, for example, is pretty basic, but there's a lot of gear out there these days that didn't exist for Wanders back when Frostwall was a big deal, like Dying Sun and also Sin's Rebirth. There's a lot of chaos scaling that didn't previously exist. There's a lot of shit that's happened, and if you scale all of that stuff, you can still create a very nice Wander. As well as that, you should be able to make a very good elemental Wander. So while poison and chaos is a huge culprit in being overpowered in builds like this, certainly it's not the be-all end-all, because there is a lot of elemental damage out there that can certainly hold its own. But for example, here we have a Hydra kill that I'm showing you off, and she's poison immune. So the DPS is somewhat lackluster, but considering she's poison immune and a lot of my damage is poison, I'm still getting a lot of damage in. And that is because of the 4 additional barrage projectiles coming from the flask and the helm enchant, and it makes the fight not that painful. If you're a pure elemental Wander, for example, though, you shouldn't have too much troubles with almost anything once you have a similar level of gear, because nothing's really resistant to your damage. Maybe some bosses have more resist, maybe you're an Inquisitor and you don't give a fuck, maybe you're a Pathfinder and can sustain your flasks anyway, and have insane damage. But for this one, yeah, Hydra's not the greatest. It is still pretty manageable, pretty easy. You just got to dodge a few balls and wait for your flask to come up. Ideally, you'll probably just zone in and out several times. Use your portals to reset flasks, because that will make the Hydra fight infinitely faster, and it's definitely worth doing. I personally just kind of like to let a fight run its course, especially since I'm on softcore. Doesn't matter. Right there, I felt the need to portal out since I had no flasks left and was getting shit on. But yeah, flasks are very powerful, and it's a good idea to come in and recoup them without wasting a portal. Most of the time, that's definitely worth it. So Hydra, not a great fight here, but not at all that bad for a poison build, and considering how easily everything else dies, this is more than acceptable just to have a little bit of struggle on while we're doing some sweet poison chaos action. This is a shaper run I'm going to show you. Shaper runs are very clean, and once you get your methodology down for how you're going to tackle it, then it definitely becomes insanely quick and easy. So as you can see, Wither Totem gets stacked very nicely. So you want to place your Wither Totem somewhere behind him typically, and Wither Totem stacks count for a very large part of your damage. So learning the correct Wither Totem placements on these boss fights is pretty crucial. Make sure it's almost always up, trying to stack Wither stacks on the boss that you're trying to face. Likewise for the adds over here, just chuck your Wither Totem back somewhere so they're not going to hit it, and it's just going to keep stacking stacks of Wither on them, which makes it a lot easier. And Vile Lightning Trap certainly goes a long way to helping you on the adds too. So Wither Totem stacks, all flasks up, go ham on the Shaper. This is phase 3, and it can get a little rough, but when you have a lot of DPS, it really doesn't matter too much how you play it, because just a few flask usages, like one good Wither stack on him, and he'll end up dying. So it is a lot easier to tackle Shaper with characters that have huge amounts of DPS like this one. As you can see, stand still, get your point blank going, get your barrage happening. Even without wither stacks, it still does a lot of damage, but ideally you do have the wither stacks rolling. This, I believe, is the perfect Phoenix kill for me, because the map itself had point blank, so I was technically in a 7 link since I was using faster attacks. This is my second, I think, Uber Atziri run, and this is not a very good fight for me, the Vals, because I'm not stun immune. I'm getting all of my stun immunity or resistance from my boots, and that means I didn't kill anything recently, and I just got stunned there and died. I should have also been able to time it better to kill them both, but I didn't, and I sucked. Long story short, still very manageable, and if you want to use an Eye of Chiola to become stun immune, it's very handy, and you should probably do it, to be honest. Trio, you can hardly fuck this one up. They die almost immediately. Val Discipline lets you face tank while you get the kill on the first one, and then we're on to Uber Atziri. And Uber Atziri dies insanely fast as well. Can be a little tricky picking which one you want to attack. Typically, I want to attack the Spear or the Flame Blast ad, and the Spear one definitely is your main culprit because you want to drop a Stibnite on top of her with your Sin's Rebirth. But I pretty much attack whichever one I want or can, and usually get the kill in before the first Flame Blast goes off, so that's a very nice DPS indeed. Yeah, just the Atziri herself is very sort of weak to the Poison Chaos builds, as we've all known for quite a while, and insanely strong against the Ignite builds. So an Elemental Wander is something I do want to make in the future because it tackles all content just a little bit nicer, and I'd like to see exactly what kind of DPS, sorry, there goes Argus, exactly what kind of DPS we can pull out on similar sorts of budget, but just a much looser requirement around the rest of my gear for Elemental. So this is Uberlab. Argus just got exploded. That's a Nazaro with full charges of the conduits. He got pretty exploded too. I've never really had such good Azara DPS, but rarely have I taken a fully geared character over to Azara anyway, and that's him with full conduits again. A couple more fights. I believe this is a Chayula run, so I had to get someone in on the run. I accidentally almost killed her way too quick. I wasn't quite sure what my DPS would be there, and that was the first time I was attacking her. Almost one-shot her before she even did anything, so that's pretty good damage right there. And yeah, had to wait for the guy to zone in and finish her off. Pretty easy stuff, the whole Chayula run. Kinetic Blast did it on a 4-link, which is incredible. Minotaur over here, well, in ideal circumstances with what I'm currently running for full gear, you can definitely stand there, face tank, and kill him within a few seconds without having to play the game. On lesser gear, you do have to run around a bit. And we come to Chimera. This is probably the worst Guardian fight for me. He is poison immune, so it does take quite a bit to get him down. But once again, with our 4 additional barrage projectiles, it's a lot faster than it otherwise would be. So he does die typically through 1 round of flasks. The ads themselves can be a bit problematic, but keep Orb Storms down, get Wither Totem down, and they'll die as long as you stand next to one of the gates. Then the real problem here is you don't have any good, well, you don't really have too many defenses. So whenever we go into smoke phase as CI without any regen and a nasty map mod like vulnerability, you just have to pray you hit the right smoke stack, and most of the time I don't. Some of the times I do, and that means we survive. Hit the wrong smoke stacks enough and you're probably just going to die. It's kind of a crappy mechanic in my opinion. So I'll go over the character real quick again, just briefly try to highlight some things that I may have missed yesterday, but first let's take a second to appreciate my fancy Celestial hood. I'm not sure it's worth the money, but it does look kind of nice, and the hood itself is cool regardless, but you don't really get any Celestial effect when you're zoomed out, so to each their own. We have some text over here on the left hand side of the screen describing more or less everything you need to know in Cliff Notes. Sin's Rebirth does a lot of chaos damage, and it basically just gives you, I think, 30% based off of your fizz, and it is currently scalable by flask effect, so it's quite a lot of chaos, as you can see right here. Boom. Something like 50% extra chaos for me. Then Atziri Flask, that's all of our leech. That's where we get all of our leech from. So if you need more leech than this, you're going to have to look elsewhere. And Dying Sun, 2 additional projectiles, very nice indeed. And then we have 2 additional projectiles on Barrage, so that's 4 total projectiles. And Barrage itself fires off 4. I accidentally said 3 yesterday. It's 3 additional, including the first one. So this does increase your output by 4, so 100% damage. Now the Barrage projectile enchant is pretty stupid, let's be real. Most helm enchants at most give you 40% increased damage. 2 additional barrage projectiles by itself gives 50% more damage to your barrage. So yeah, if you can get one of those, it's amazing. If you can't, well, I understand it's way too expensive and very desired for this build as well as tornado shot or bow type builds as well. The wand I'm using ends up being about 200 physical DPS. Crafted it myself, I would say anything over 150 DPS with some good crit and attack speed would be nice. If you can get a chaos roll as well, that is highly desired, but becomes a lot more expensive. Gear, the rest of my gear is more or less just trying to fill out a lot of energy shield because I'm wearing a Cospri's Will, and that's the reason I'm doing that is for poison. If you didn't use Cospri's Will, you'd have to use poison in your links, and that's a pretty big loss of damage for one entire link. As well as that, gives you 1 additional curse, and we get 1 additional curse from Occultist, so 3 curses total, 1 coming from the Blasphemy projectile weakness, and 2 coming from the Orb of Storms setup of Orb of Storms, Vulnerability, Curse on Hit, and Assassin's Mark. So these 2 curses only go up when you actually need them, and the rest are projectile weakness up all of the time. Projectile weakness does not double dip on poison. It does increase the initial hit of your attack quite substantially, thus increasing your initial poison hits. It doesn't then scale the poison afterwards. That much is clear at this stage, and yeah, it's still worth using in my opinion for the initial hits, which are going to be pretty big. My amulet currently gives me a lot of accuracy. If I was going to wear an Eye of Chigula permanently, which is a very good idea by the way, then you'd probably get more accuracy here, or one of the other rings. But my rings, they were self-crafted with contempts on steel rings, and I basically built the rest of my gear around them. So I started out with 2 steel rings, put some contempts into it, they turned out very nice, and then I built the rest of the gear around those. Just get whatever you can. Some accuracy, some fizz goes a long way, some chaos damage. I wanted more damage instead of energy shield, because 8.5k energy shield is enough for me. The shield, 500 energy shield, very solid indeed. 450 plus I'd say is what you're going for at least. And then you got boots with more movement speed than 20% ideally. But about 150 energy shield should be very achievable, and the enchant is why I don't use an Eye of Chigula most of the time, because I don't really need to. But it's a lot safer, obviously. The Barrage, the Kinetic Blast itself, Kinetic Blast, GMP, and Pierce, they're pretty much your staples, and then added Chaos gives a lot of extra Chaos damage. Not sure what else I really need to mention. Everything's been pretty much covered in the previous video. As far as the build goes, the guide, all that. Wither goes a long way to get a 4 link, I suppose, for the increased duration, the faster casting. Wither is a huge amount of your damage, and it is pretty fucking broken, so try and use it in all of your poison builds. The tree, well, I've already shown that off before. What you need on Jules, basically projectile damage. Wand attack speed is pretty good. Some crit multi goes a long way too, because we don't have good crit multi. Since almost none of it is on the tree for us, just here, there, and a bit of wanding stuff. As far as ascendancies go, I do think Occultist was a really good choice because power charge on crit is very nice. We're not going to get Skyforths, and besides that, there's no real good way of sustaining power charges as a wander all of the time. So I am pretty happy with the choice to go Occultist. You can go an Assassin, you can go a Pathfinder. There's plenty of other choices. This is an Occultist. That's what I chose. If you want to choose a different one, guys, by all means do so. Try and not get me to make a passive tree for you. It'd be similar anyway. But yeah, that's basically the Wander. It's pretty expensive, it's very effective, and it's just more of a proof of concept for me that Wanders can be insane with Barrage, and Frostwell certainly did not kill the spec, having been nerfed. That's it for the build, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.